With an established professional league already and loads of fans up and down the country, it's undeniable that the UK loves hockey. But the last time the NHL paid a visit to the UK was back in 2007, and so is it time for the NHL to make a return to the United Kingdom? Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Victoria and I talk all things Toronto sports, hockey and baseball from across the pond in Scotland, and for today's video we're talking about whether or not the NHL should come to the UK. This topic came to my mind because I woke up the other morning, I checked Twitter or X, or I'm going to call it Twitter, and I'd been tagged multiple times in a post that said Elliot Friedman asked Nathan MacKinnon if he could change or bring one thing to the NHL, what would it be? And Nathan MacKinnon replied saying, I would love to see a team in London. I just think British people would love hockey if they saw a little bit more of it and saw all of the best players play. And so of course, as a massive NHL fan who lives in the UK, this piqued my attention. And firstly, to start, British people do already love hockey, in my opinion. Hockey is by far the #1 spectator sport in the UK. It beats the likes of basketball, darts, snooker, netball, everything in terms of spectator numbers. Games sell out. There is a professional league over here, which is the EIHL. I will pop up above my head somewhere. I did do a short video on sort of a rundown of how the Elite Ice Hockey League works, but there are also other semi-professional leagues in the UK, and if you want a full breakdown of just how hockey works at all levels in the UK, please let me know, because I'm thinking of doing a video on just that. But the EIHL has 10 teams which spread all across the country, and attendance rates are really good for a lot of these games, especially in the likes of Sheffield, who have a large 8,000 crowd often. I mean, those aren't small numbers, especially when you consider the other sports which exist in the UK. Sport is an integral part of our culture over here, but predominantly exists around football, rugby, golf, not so much hockey. But there are really dedicated fan bases of people who know the sport well and who really enjoy it. Despite this though, a survey in June 2023 showed that only 5% of 8,230 consumers in the UK show an interest in ice hockey. Now there's some issues with hockey in the UK. There's a lack of media coverage, there isn't much exposure in the news, you can't watch the games on mainstream networks such as Sky or TNT. BBC Sport only does a small amount of coverage of the games over here, and this also extends to the NHL. So there are a lot of NHL fans in the UK. If you go to any rink, you will see a variety of NHL jerseys. There's a lot of like Ducks jerseys, there's some Leafs fans including me. There are NHL fans already established in the UK. It's not a completely new market. There's also an increasing number of NHL fans, in my opinion, even in the time that I started watching, which was around 2016. And of course, it can be tough watching the NHL in this country. There's a massive time difference, especially for West Coast teams, where an 8-hour time difference can really prevent you from being able to watch the games. And not everyone is as insane as me and doesn't mind staying up until 3 in the morning watching their team, even if they support an East Coast team. Again, you can't watch the NHL on mainstream networks. Again, it isn't on like Sky or TNT Sports or anything. You have to buy a subscription. It's on Viaplay, or you buy an NHL TV subscription, or use a VPN. You don't just turn on the TV, turn on a sports channel, and there's randomly an NHL game on. Unlike watching the NFL and to an extent the MLB. Now the NFL, in my opinion, is the most established North American Major League sport over here in the UK. Every single year there are games down in London and they do really well. I think because so many NFL games are on early, of course, too, it makes it a lot easier for people to watch because they don't have to stay up half the night to watch. The Super Bowl is an international event that everyone knows about and loves. And so the NFL, in my opinion, is what the NHL should be sort of aspiring to do a little bit more when it comes to the UK market. However, to circle back to the Elliot Friedman and Nathan MacKinnon conversation, having an NHL team permanently in London is something that I had to think about for a little while before I commented on, because the first instinct is that would be amazing. Imagine having an NHL team right on my doorstep. I wouldn't have to pay hundreds of pounds to fly out to go and see an NHL team all the time. It would be amazing. And then I thought about it a little bit more and thought, what would the benefits be to the NHL? And I understand the NHL wants to keep expanding, which actually, in terms of expansion in general, I don't want the league to get too big, because I just think there's a possibility that if they keep expanding but keeping certain teams which perhaps should be relocated, it's going to end up just too big and maybe not at the same quality that it should be. But that's a separate conversation. For now, we're just talking about an NHL team in London or in the UK in general. Now, it would specifically probably have to be London realistically, because just in terms of like venues and stuff, there's actually no arena in the UK right now that isn't already preoccupied by another sporting team which would be viable to use if there were to be an expansion team in the UK. Last time that the NHL was here, it was 2007, and they played in the O2 Arena. But of course, these venues are already like taken up by other teams and other events. In terms of rinks here, the rinks are quite small. They're very small. My local rink only has a capacity of, I believe it's 2,400, and even the bigger arenas such as Sheffield's arena and Nottingham's arena, they're still not NHL sized. Well, unless you're the Arizona Coyotes, of course. I think expecting players to travel that distance to an away game, they're not suddenly going to pick up British players to play in London either, because we don't have the standard of player that typically makes the NHL. And players do have families, of course. They don't want to be constantly doing transatlantic travel all the time, and I don't blame them for that. Plus, surely then, every time the team that was based in London had to play any away game, they're spending a lot of time not in the UK anyway. It's just a lot of travel, and as someone who frequently travels across the Atlantic, that's not something that you want to be doing as a commute, you know? Especially if you're going out west, that's a long flight to be doing, to potentially be on a tight schedule for getting to other places too. There's also the time difference issue, which would have an effect on player performance. It would mess up some of the sort of watching times for people back in Canada and the States, which are still the main market, and that's probably not great for growth over there. And then you'd have the debate over the cost of the tickets. Now, are you going to charge like Maple Leafs level prices? Because people here won't pay that, I don't think. I could be well off on this one, but in my opinion, people won't pay that, given that you can watch Premier League football, which is obviously top class, top flight football, for less than that. And also, while the EIHL has really dedicated significant fan bases, they're not reaching the capacity that an NHL size arena would fill up either. Sometimes you only get, a couple thousand fans at games. I think that's quite an average attendance. I'll pop up over my head right now some attendance rates from around the league, and it'll give you an idea that, this is local hockey, which is reasonably affordable to go to, and they're not selling out the rinks that are here, so it does seem a little illogical to try and sort of expand it to that degree, in my opinion. I'm honestly not too sure about any international franchise in the NHL. I think there's almost a novelty in it being a North American sport, and so them being based over there. And in my opinion, I think that the NHL would be better focused on marketing the NHL in its current form to UK fans and trying to grow that a bit more, rather than having an NHL team based in the UK. However, I also think that a great opportunity to both market the game and to include the UK market a little bit more in the NHL strategy could be to have a global series weekend over here in the UK. It takes out the venue issue because it's for a short time. It takes out all of the problems of permanently having an NHL team here, which I saw the general response to that quote by Nathan McKinnon, and a lot of people were not in favour of it, which I can understand, because it's easy as a UK person to go, yes, give us a team. But realistically and logistically, it just doesn't really work. Sweden, of course, had the Global Series games last year back in November, and there was great success, and there was a lot of UK fans attended that event. As I said, back in 2007, the LA Kings and the Anaheim Ducks played at the O2 Arena in London on the 29th of September and 30th of September 2007. And just to note, the Kings won the first game 4-1 and the Ducks won the second by the same score. Could this happen again? Now, I think this is something that is very feasible. I think this could be a great idea. The UK has a big enough market to sustain a weekend like that. People would happily fork out to go and stay down in London from all over the UK and go and attend this. I think that'd be super exciting. I want to go. It doesn't even exist and I want to go. The hockey culture over here would absolutely adore it. And while I understand that there are so many European countries and so many other countries in the world which have a great hockey culture too, sometimes European hockey can vary quite significantly from North American hockey in terms of physicality. Recently I interviewed a couple of professional hockey players that play for my local team, a couple of Canadian guys, and one of my questions that I gave them was the biggest difference that they noticed playing here versus over there, and the main things that they noted were the rink size, because here we have like Olympic size ice, it's much bigger. There isn't the NHL standardization of ice size. So that, and the fact that they said that European hockey they always find is much more skill based and it's not quite as physical. Now the EIHL I would say is like a right in between. Like over in mainland Europe it's really skill focused. So Swedish hockey and like a lot of hockey over on the continent is like not as physical. It's really not as physical a game because you have the bigger ice. It gives you more room to like involve more skill but takes away some of the physical elements, and the EIHL sits somewhere in the middle of this. It's quite interesting. There's still a lot of skill involved, but it's a lot more physical than what a lot of other European hockey is, and I think it makes for a great market for the NHL to capitalise on because it has so many similarities. So my thoughts, I think that the NHL should definitely have some global series games here. I don't think there should be a permanent NHL team. I really don't fancy an international NHL team no matter what country we're talking about, even if it is my own and even if it made my own life a lot easier, because I just think logistically, and I think that in reality for the players and the fans, it's probably best to keep the NHL within North America. But this is just my opinion. Comment down below, tell me what you think. If you completely disagree with me, I want to hear it. Please, I'm always up for like hearing other people's points of view, so comment down below and tell me what you think. What do you think about the NHL coming to the UK? And that is all from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be back soon with more hockey chats from across the pond. Bye guys.
Songs of worries, traveling with the storm. But I must try to figure it out alone. Yeah, I must try.